السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we seek His refuge from the evils of our own selves. And we seek refuge from all the evils in this world. And they are many. Whether it be through the media, through school, through other people, through the various desires which are around us, which call us, and the devils which support that which is false. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us be sincere in worshiping Him and be sincere in learning about His religion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses those who are sincere. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us about La ilaha illallah and to teach us about Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And today I want to remind you, each and every one of you, that your children care and need you. Your children want to hear from you. Your children, whether they admit it or not, value your advice. Your children, whether they admit it or not, need your advice. and your children, and you are to your children the world. You are their world. And you always will be the world even when they have children. Even when they become older. You are their backbone. O father, you are your child's backbone. O mother, you are their heart. And they need you. And I know you all feel this. For the parents who are a little bit older, think about your father. Think about your mother. And how much you value them. And the older you got, the more you value them. And today, I know parents really struggle and they are afraid for their own children, and you have right to be that way. That is something you should truly value and you should truly care about, because we live in a world of 1,000,000 things, 1,000,001 things. So today, in the brief time that I have, I'd like to share with you something, a model we can implement in our lives to help our children get through their times. And the best model is the first generation of Muslims. What made them who they are? What made them succeed so much that 1400 years later, we still value them and we still see them as role models? That's quite successful. Can you imagine a piece of technology that's still used 1400 years later? Such as the wheel, such as the printing press. Those are technologies, developments that really are on top. So what made the Sahaba on top? One thing is for sure. Their environment isn't much different than our environment in terms of what was available. They dealt with non-Muslims. They dealt with Islamophobia. They dealt with hypocrites. They dealt with believers who were weak in faith. They dealt with innovations. They dealt with many of the things that we deal with. There were Muslims who used to drink. There were Muslims who used to fornicate. They did not live in a utopia. That's just not the case. Yet they still succeeded, which means that your children, you yourselves, can succeed in the environment we live with today. So what made the Sahaba the best? 3 things. 3 things made them the best. Number 1, they understood their religion. In other words, they did not follow the religion just because they were born that way. Just because they were in an environment that said La ilaha illallah. They followed Islam because they believed it. And this is important. That you teach your children to value Islam. You teach them to follow Islam because it deserves to be followed. That they are not Muslim. When you ask them, they don't say, I am Muslim because my parents are Muslim. You don't ask them, and they say, I don't know. You want them to know. And you teach them over time. And no, at 14, 15 years old, at 10 years old, they might not know, and that's pretty normal. But with time, they should know. And you can do it. You as parents can do it, because your opinion matters. And studies show this. Studies show that the opinion of parents, that their advice has a lot of weight in the heart of the youth, even though they might not show it. So no matter how much they turn away when you talk to them, no matter how indifferent they may seem, know that your words are coming in their hearts. It might not be the first time, it might not be the second time, you might need to repeat yourself 10 times. But know you have an obligation, you have a duty to teach your children, to make them better. Not to blindly follow Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. And amongst people, amongst the believers, are those who worship Allah on a side, a harf. Now the word harf in the Arabic language refers to like a cliff. So imagine someone standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind them is land, and in front of them is a long fall. And they have nothing supporting them. They are at the mercy of the wind. If the wind blows towards them, they fall back to land. And if it blows to their backs, behind them, then they fall over. They are at the mercy of wind because they entered Islam for some sort of worldly benefit. They entered Islam, they don't know why. They were born Muslim, they just never cared to learn why. They are at the mercy of the wind. So if some good befalls them, they say, man, this religion is awesome. Look at what I got. And if they find hardship or a calamity, they say, what do I want with this religion? And this is mentioned. And this would happen in the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not in our time. The companions dealt with this, right? So we don't live in an anomaly. We don't live in a time where everything is just different. No one understands. That's not true. In the time of the Sahaba and in Hadith, it mentions that someone would come and they'd accept Islam. Hey, it's the new fad in Medina. Let's accept it. They'd go back to their homes. They'd find that they had a male child was born. They find that it was a year which they got a lot of rain. Say, man, once I entered this religion, things became good. I'm going to stay with it. And sometimes they'd go back and they'd find that they had a female child. They don't like that. It was a year of drought. They don't like that. So they blame the religion. They say, as soon as I entered this religion, all these hardships came. And that is because they entered the religion not on certainty. They entered the religion because they were following the fad of Medina. We don't want that. And your children, they are bombarded with ideas. And that stresses them out. So give them benefit. Know that their realities might be harder than even yours, especially when you were growing up. So make it your goal that your children are Muslim because they value Islam. That with or without you, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you long lives. With or without you, they're going to follow Islam because they are convinced that no matter how good their life might be or how hard it may be, they are following Islam because they truly believe in La ilaha illallah. Teach them what La ilaha illallah means. That there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah. Tell them why there can't be more than one God. And the Quran mentions this, a logical argument. Because sometimes taking the Quran and saying, oh, Allah says this, that's not enough. Because in the environment we live in, revelation, religious text has very, very little value. If you go to a politician and tell them, you ban alcohol, for example. Why do we want to ban alcohol? Because the Quran says, the answer is very simple. Well, I don't believe in the Quran. I don't believe in it. That's not a reasonable argument for that individual. For us, because we believe that this is the word of Allah, it has value. But to them, it doesn't. But there's always a way to logically explain why alcohol is not allowed in Islam. Our religion is a religion of logic. A religion that makes sense. To tell them that. So when they ask, why can't there be more than one God? Well, Allah responds to that. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهِ لَفَسَدَتَا. That if there was more than one deity in the skies, in the heavens and the earth, then you would see a lot of corruption and chaos. Meaning, if there are two gods, they will battle it out. There will be battle. No God will accept the command of the other God. It's just not the way it works. Because the idea of a God is that he is superior. So if there are two, then they will battle it out. Yet what we see in the universe, what do we see? Organization. The earth rotates around the sun every 365.25 days. And it never changes. The earth rotates on its own axis once every 24 hours. The wind comes, it blows the clouds. The clouds let down rain. Rain brings out agriculture. It's always like that. It's predictable, and that's why they're called scientific laws. They don't change. So if there was a God for the rain, for example, and there was a God for the earth, then know that when the God says rain, bring out your agriculture, the other God will say, I don't have to listen. I'm not going to listen to you. So sometimes it'll rain and nothing will come out. And sometimes things will come out of the ground without rain. It wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't be able to have these laws. And by the way, atheists, when you read the books of atheists who try and rebuke religion, they always talk about the monotheistic faith. Those that believe in one God. Because to them, scientifically speaking, there cannot be more than one God. This is how you talk to your children. Because the weight of revelation in school has no value. It's very limited. So sometimes when you tell them, oh, Allah says this and Allah says that, it doesn't work with them. That's okay. Because Islam gave us, it's a logical religion. You can't explain everything in Islam, or almost everything in Islam, through logic. You can't do that. But it takes effort. It takes knowledge. And you as parents can do that. So the first thing, what made the Sahaba the best of the best, is that they understood Islam and they valued it and they entered it out of certainty. Because they were convinced that Islam was correct. Number two, their teacher was the one and only Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallu ala Rasulillah. Allahumma salli wa sallam alayhi. And knowing his biography is enough. And you, the older generation, you value him. You love him more than the younger generation. That's because when you were growing up, you would always hear Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. You value that. Whenever you hear your name, everyone in your class would say Allahumma salli wa sallam alayhi. So that glorified his personality in your hearts. His sunnah became very important. And when you study his biography, you know why. He deserves that. He deserves to be followed. No sunnah, no tradition is as good as his, as we Muslims believe. You value that. Teach it to your children, because they don't know, or they might not know. They don't live in that environment. In school, they don't hear Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name. So you need to make that up. Tell them who he was. Because anyone who knows who the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, they won't hate him, unless they themselves have a problem. No one hates Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam except they themselves have some sort of internal problem. Teach them who he was. Because your children are hearing, oh, you're ISIS. Oh, look, you're terrorists. You rape women, right? You behead people. They're hearing this in school. And if they don't know who Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, what can they say? How are they going to defend themselves? What if they know Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they know his biography, then know that they know the difference between him, the messenger of Allah, and these guys. It's very clear. And the strongest argument against them is the seerah, the biography of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Teach them who he was. Teach them his efforts. Teach them how he would deal with non-Muslims. Teach them how he would deal with Muslims, the young and the old. How he taught everything to them. How much the Sahaba valued Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whereas Muhammad, before Islam, before he became a prophet, he was just an average individual. Abu Bakr had more popularity pre-Islam than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why during the very early days of prophethood, he would be walking around with Abu Bakr. People would come and greet Abu Bakr, and they'd ask him, who is this person with you? That was the reality. So teach them who Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, and know that with time, with effort, they will love him. And whoever attacks Islam, they'd say, no, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not that way. So number two is, their teacher was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So teach your children who he was. And finally, their manners. Number three is their manners. They had the best manners, but they learned that from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They learned that from their customs. The Arabs were known to be, at that time at least, people of manners. And this is displayed when Abu Talib was on his deathbed. Abu Jahl was at one side of his bed, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on the other side. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would talk to Abu Talib and try and convince him to accept Islam, Abu Jahl would stay silent until he finished. Can you imagine this? Two enemies at the sides of a bed. They would respect each other to the point where they would stay silent when someone else would talk. Yet today, in the Arab world, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make things better. They don't allow anyone to talk. In order to win the debate, you just need to talk over the other person. That's how it is. That's not the way the Sahaba were. If someone would talk, they would wait. And there are so many incidents of this happening. That someone would come and start reprimanding the Prophet ﷺ. Oh, you did this. You made enemies of families. You split families. Children are now against their parents. They're disobeying their parents. You have broken the ties of family. You have brought innovation to our people. You have caused chaos. They'd reprimand him and keep going. The Prophet ﷺ would stay silent until he's finished. And he'd say, are you done? And then he would answer him. That when the Prophet ﷺ went to Tarik and they stoned him to the point of bleeding, and they had the ability to take revenge, What did he say? He said, no, maybe from amongst their children would come a people who worship Allah. Look at that mercy. The manners of Islam. Teach them that. And know that a lot of the manners that Islam teaches us, Western curriculums teach the same thing. So when they see that, oh look, Islam is teaching us what we hear in school, the golden rule, say unto others what you would like to be said to yourself, right? If you have nothing nice to say, now don't say anything. Well, the Prophet ﷺ taught us the same thing. When they see these two connections, they say, oh, look at that, Islam is much greater than what I think. Teach them about the manners. So that when they walk around, anyone, any employer would want to grab them. That's what you need to be. That's what your children need to be. So 3 things that made the Sahaba the best of the best. And it was not the environment they lived in. As I said before, what made them the best is that they understood their religion. They knew what La ilaha illallah means. Number 2, they knew who Muhammad ﷺ was. He was their teacher. And number 3, their manners. They had the best of manners. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear brothers and sisters, don't blindly follow Islam. Internalize Islam, meaning understand your religion, understand it both in revelation and logically, so that you follow Islam out of conviction. And the more conviction you have of Islam, the more you love it, the more dedicated you become. And this is what made the Sahaba superior. This is what made the first 3 generations of Islam the best. They followed Islam because they were convinced of it. They studied every detail and they learned about it. And they said, yes, this is the best. So when your children come to you and say, Dad, what's the evidence that there is a God? Don't interpret that as them doubting Islam. Don't think that they are rejecting Islam. They just want to learn. They're curious. They are hearing this in school. And that's okay. The one who asks is better than the one who doesn't ask. Think of it that way. The fact that they are thinking about these things puts them ahead. The fact that they are thinking about religion, thinking about God, puts them ahead. Think of it that way. So channel their question. Don't reject it, but at the same time, don't allow them to just question everything. Go find, right? Do whatever you want. Think of whatever you want. No. Be in the middle path. If they ask a question, channel it. Say, yes, there's an answer. But sometimes our reply is, oh, don't ask that, because we ourselves don't know how to answer. In order for our children to become better, we need to be better ourselves. So what can we do to help our children? Number 1, better yourselves. Better yourselves. Learn about Islam. Fill your downtime with learning about Islam. When you are commuting to work, when you are going and running errands, open the radio, open YouTube, and listen to a lecture. Listen to what the scholars say. And know that, alhamdulillah, now we have American-born Muslim scholars who answer the questions your children are asking. And they make it easy for you to access. On YouTube, there's a channel called Faith IQ. Faith IQ, in which a group of Muslim scholars answer questions they get from your children, from your youth. And the answers tend to be 2-3 minutes long. And they give you good answers. So listen and learn from them, so that when your child asks you why Allah said this, why Islam prevents this, why it prohibits this, why do we have to pray 5 times a day, you'll have some sort of answer that they will logically accept. So better yourselves, and you can do it, but put the effort. Number 2, communicate with your children. And know that, as I said before in the beginning of the khutbah, your words have value to them, even though they might not admit it, even though they might seem indifferent to it. But sometimes you have to be indirect with them. Sometimes going to them and saying, believe in Islam, has a little bit of weight. But when you're talking to your spouse, for example, and you say, oh man, I learned something interesting about Islam today, and your child is there and listening, they internalize that more. Because now they don't feel like you are attacking them. Now they don't feel like you are doubting them, but rather they're taking information as they take information from school. Talk about, man, I read a hadith today. Look how awesome the Prophet ﷺ is. Oh, I was listening to a lecture today, and the Sheikh talked about this piece of information. Look how interesting that is, while your child is listening. So sometimes the best form of communication, and the scholars mention this, the scholars who talk about enjoining good and forbidding evil, they talk about sometimes, if you want to teach someone, be indirect about it. So talk to your spouse. Make that the topic of the dinner table that day, so that your child doesn't feel like you are attacking them or you are doubting them. And number 3, and this is referencing the previous, or the Sheikh Yasser's khutbah 2 weeks ago, know how they are doing. Know how your children are doing, the real one. How they're feeling, what's going on in their heart. And my dear brothers and sisters, your children are more stressed out than you. Studies show this. Now yes, they're not going through as much as you are. They don't have as much responsibilities as you do, but know that they are young. They can't handle the responsibilities you have. So although to you it seems minute, it seems very minor, it seems like they're just complaining, know that they don't feel that way. They truly are stressed out. So ask them how they are doing. And know, my dear brothers and sisters, that sometimes, or most of the times, when Muslims reject Islam, it has nothing to do with Islam itself. It goes back to the verse I quoted before, that amongst people are those who worship Allah with doubt. So when a hardship befalls them, they say, what do I want with this? Oh, I asked Allah to give me a good marriage, my marriage was terrible. Allah rejected me. And they leave Islam. Oh, my life is so hard. If Allah was there, then why is my life so hard? Right? It has nothing to do with their theology. It has nothing to do with the Quran or Muhammad ﷺ. It just has to do with their emotions they're going through. So make sure you know how your children are doing. Ask them, how are you doing? And know that that's very important. And sometimes they might be hiding something from you. Bring that out. And you as parents can. You can do it. But you need to understand how. And know that your children love you, even though they may not say it. That your children need you, even though they may seem indifferent to that. We have a few announcements. Make dua for Wafa Shama and Rasmi Matariya and Habib Rahmani, who all passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive their sins, to overlook their shortcomings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give patience to their families. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make their graves a piece of paradise and to forgive their sins. Also make dua for brother Abdullah Mujaddadi, who has cancer and is going through surgery next week. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a speedy recovery and a successful surgery, and to grant his family patience through their hard times. Today, the Pillars is having a book fair. It's the last day outside, so please stop by and support them. Issues facing your youth, new classes on Friday, February 9th at 6 p.m. The topic of our next class is Islam. It's relevant. Is it relevant? Is it backwards? I have doubts. Again, the title of Issues facing your youth class. The title of the next class, which is on February 9th, is Islam. Is it irrelevant? Is it backwards? And children saying, I have doubts. Check the TV for further announcements. Also, Quran class today at 4:30 p.m. And the youth group will be meeting at 6 p.m. Please visit Uplift charity table outside. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا، وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا، وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا، واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير، واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your families and bless your children, grant them the iman which will help them navigate through life and give them the joy. The Prophet ﷺ told us, من رضي بالله ذاق طعم الإيمان من رضي بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبرسول محمد رسولا. أقم الصلاة.